Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. I'm your fluffy and funny host, John McGlynn, and today I had the pleasure of talking with Big Bad John, also known as Dynasty Coach A, the Devy scientist, self-proclaimed, who you can find on the Twitter machine at Dynasty Coach A, the Monocle Podcast. Tell me about yourself, John, and what you do and what's coming down the pipeline from you.
Yeah, I definitely am a self-proclaimed Devy scientist. It doesn't even mean anything. I don't know. I think I was drunk one night and put that on my profile. I do a lot of nerdy stuff. I make models and spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff like that, and look at the stats and the numbers and just a bunch of boring nerdy stuff that not everyone wants to do, but it's worked out really well for me, and I've ended up being very accurate with rookies and getting into Devy, finding like the Devy gems before people even know about them, or at least some people, because obviously there's some really good people in the Devy community, but that's kind of where I've turned my focus recently, is getting more into the Devy side and just being more and more accurate there.
It's a couple things you touched on right there that are kind of close to home, because I had typing in high school. I never had computer or anything. I didn't go to college. I'm a tradesman. So I self-taught myself Google Sheets over the last couple of years, kind of like, doing rankings and kind of one by one. But the problem I'm having now is I literally have to go through like 8 websites that I use for like people's rankings, who my favorite guys are, and import each individual player and write them in, and I separate them by the quarterbacks, the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and then the top 350, whatever. So by hand, I'm adding like 24, plus one, just saying, and I do it for 8 people, and then I take kind of the averages all together and then see where I have them at and move them all around. So it literally takes me about 40 hours a month doing this, and that's why I'm getting on a computer now saying, like, do I do coding or do I do this and that, or what do I need to do, or just be better at computers or better at Google Sheets? And I've asked a bunch of questions, but I just see the Peter Howard spreadsheets and the Dave Spaceman Dave Wright, yep. and these guys come on and are like, oh, you just press A4 and it's 17B, and then press the fly button and it all imports and it goes across and adds it up for you. I'm like, I could literally be doing everything I was doing in about 40 minutes and do everything, and that's taking me 40 hours. Like, yeah. I know I'm on the right track, and I just have to I have to streamline my process. So I've been taking last couple of days. I've been taking learn Google Sheets classes and a bunch of other shit. Nice. And some of my neighbors are kind of like, yeah, come on over, I'll give you a hand this weekend. And so it's a matter of time before I streamline my process. But I love this stuff. I've been playing fantasy football for a long time, and I'm trying to make myself a better fantasy football analyst, or whatever your provider or anything, just by helping myself be better. So it'll be a process, it's time, but I'll catch up to speed with you guys and all the computer guys, self-proclaimed nerds or whatever are. And I also just joined my first campus to Canton League recently.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the problem is I'm in there with David Bell and what the hell's his name? Kevin.
The boys.
Yeah. And so there's like 4 people in there who actually, what's on the Devy Royale show. Like Connor, what's Christian Williams and all 3 of those guys are in the league with me, and it's like, okay, half the league is people who do podcasts about the Devy Royale. How is this going to even be fair?
That's actually how I feel. I just joined my first C2C. Like I said, I'm newer to Devy, but I haven't done a C2C, and so I just joined my first one, but it doesn't actually draft until June. And so I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm in there with a lot of guys that have done multiple C2C leagues, and like all they do is Devy, and it's a little nerve-wracking, but luckily, I do feel pretty good about my model, so it helps. But what I was going to say was I was exactly like you. I failed an Excel class in college. I knew nothing about. I've always been good with technology and stuff like that, but I never cared about Excel, which is funny because I own my own business. So like you would think I would have some use for it, but I just never did. Right. But luckily, I'm good friends with Spaceman, with Dave Wright, and so he kind of helped me in the beginning, or I wouldn't even say kind of. He definitely helped me in the beginning, learn about all this stuff. And then honestly, at that point, I feel like once you have the basics down, then a lot of it's just like playing around with it. And then, like you said, getting into I did everything. My first model, I did everything by hand. Everything was manually entered, just like what you're talking about, and it takes forever. And if you screw one thing up, everything's screwed up, And now I have a formula like you're talking about where it's called index match. And it'll bring it from a different page or a different site or whatever, and it'll just automatically throw it to the right player. And so it's so much easier, so much better, but it just takes time to learn, the formulas and how they work. And honestly, YouTube helps a lot, because once, like, I can tell you, use an index match formula, and you're going to go, what the hell are you talking about? But if you type in index match formula Excel or Google Sheets or whatever in YouTube, it'll walk you through every single step of what you need to do. So, I mean, there's definitely some good stuff that you can learn from there too.
I've learned so much by myself already by looking at some classes or looking at some online tutorials and things like that. And by the way, hey, Craig, thanks for joining us today. I know I have so much more to go. And even when I think I know, it's like everything else. Just when you think you know what you're doing, like you probably know about 30% of what you really want to know or what you possibly can know. So it's right. It's going to be a never-ending struggle as far as that goes. I don't want to just know how to import stuff and move it over. But I've come so far on Google. I use Google Sheets, and everybody says you got to move to Excel if you want to be proficient. And other people people who are like really professional say, no, it doesn't matter if you use Google Sheets or Excel, or it really doesn't matter at all as long as you know what you're doing or know how to use them, whatever you prefer. And I'm kind of like, what do I do? I think
here? the major nerds, which I'm not quite to that level yet, but the major nerds have broken Google Sheets with their formulas.
Yes.
And so that's why they go, okay, you got to go to Excel because it has a little more computing power or whatever the hell. I don't even know exactly what it is. I just know that they say, oh, you can only do so much with Google Sheets. I've done quite a bit. I mean, I have a trade calculator that I created through Google Sheets. It's on Google Sheets, and you can do all that. I have a team evaluator. I have my models. Like, I have all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible to break it or go beyond the capabilities of Google Sheets, but I definitely have not gotten to that point yet.
Yeah. I literally, the more and more I get into this computer stuff, the more and more I want to do everything you just said. I want to do my own trade calculator, because I have subscribed to probably 10 different trade. I started off the free ones, and I did the ones that are on the sites that I liked, and then I kind of streamlined the process to the ones that I actually love, that I see eye to eye with kind of on most of their projections. But if you take 7 trade calculators, DLF or actual trade calculator from the DTC, and like Fantasy Mansion has one, even though he blocks me, I don't know why. I can still use this stuff sometimes. So, but there's 15 different, all the free ones. If you go on there and type in players and you put a trade for a player you like and a different player, I just wish that I knew what calculators people were using, so I can like.
Oh, I know, it's tough.
Totally like you could shoot fish in a barrel if you knew what people were using as far as like their trade calculators are concerned.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I had a friend 2 days ago literally say that. He said he knew for a fact that somebody used the DTC calculator, and he felt like the values were off, at least on one certain player, and he looked it up in the DTC calculator, saw that it was lower than what he felt like it should have been, sent the trade, and it was accepted. So I mean, you can definitely take advantage of people that way, and that's why I think it's smart to not solely rely on a trade calculator. I don't want the goal to be that people solely rely on my trade calc or anything. I want it to be a starting point or a learning point, where you say, like, I feel like my valuation or evaluation of players isn't the greatest, and you start using it, and eventually you start kind of figuring things out and picking up on things, and then eventually you don't even need it. Right. And that's honestly like the true goal, is to not even need it and just have it in your own head. But even then, sometimes it's nice, even for me, like I've sent 1 million trades, I've accepted 1 million trades, but sometimes it's nice to just be able to go in there and be like, I know how I feel about these players, but like, what would somebody else feel like? Try to get an idea of what the competition would think by putting into the trade calculator. And then if it says it's 2 first off, then you go, okay, they're not going to accept this. And then you don't even send it, and you don't piss anybody off by doing that.
Right. I feel like trade calculators are, when you get into fantasy football, you start playing for a little bit, you find a trade calculator. It's like training wheels on your bike. For a long time, if you're in for a handful of years, you use them all the time. And the problem is, I think people start using them as a crutch, where they can't even make a trade without referring to a calculator first and seeing how bad they are or how close they are. And it's the thing is that some people add 4 or 5 players to equal one person, and it's like that's not how calculators are supposed to be. It's supposed to be
Right.
it's supposed to be like how close are these guys in comparison to each other, not taking 4 quarters add up to $1 kind of thing. But once the trading wheels are off, it's kind of hard to break that mold of like referring to your calculator all the time. It's like a safety blanket. And once you get rid of that, like on the side, you don't use them anymore. You just kind of use like, what you learned or all the stuff that you've inputted or researched. It's pretty nice to kind of like just be free of that trade calculator situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think people get like so dead set on like if a trade calc says that it's even, then that means somebody's going to accept the trade. Right. Even if it's a completely fair trade, that doesn't mean it's going to get accepted. Like it still has to make sense for a team, and that's where you have to. I mean, even if you use a trade calculator every single time, because I don't want to talk down on people that use it. Like I said, I literally created one so that people could use it. And I'm not saying you were either, but like the point is, or the goal is look at the values, learn from the values, but then also learn what's important for this other team, like what's going to help this team get better and what's going to help make this trade actually work, because getting the values right is only half of the battle, or part of the battle. At that point you have to, does it actually make sense? Is it helping their team? Is it helping my team? So on and so forth.
Well, I'm not really worried about helping anybody else's team. I just want to make sure my team's better.
True. I mean, you have to act like you're trying to help
exactly. But that was that would be my goal one day, to make my site, and not just throw some piece of shit together just to kind of throw something out there and say, look, I did something, but like really be proud of what I put out there. And I see that I was going to ask you about the Dave Wright situation before, because I'm so impressed with everything he does. And for you to be able to help him, I mean, it says a lot for you, and the knowledge that you have, to offer to people in the fantasy community and yourself.
It's not even necessarily knowledge. It's more that I've spent so much time in his database. So, I mean, it's more a testament to him, but I've spent so much time in his database that I every once in a while I'll find a flaw, like I'll find a stat that was inputted incorrectly or whatever it might be. It's rare. Like most of the stuff in there is correct. But I mean, as you get more and more into Excel and Google Sheets and all that, you're going to realize that it's very simple to make a mistake. Like in Excel, like you accidentally fat finger one letter and all of a sudden, you've done a completely different formula, or the formula doesn't work, or whatever it might happen. Or sometimes you'll copy paste and it'll change certain things and yada yada. But point of the story is I'm going through and every once in a while I'll just be like, hey, this doesn't look right. Can you check on it and make sure the formula's right? And then he'll say, yep, you're right, or sometimes he'll come back and then, nope, that's right. But, every once in a while, like, you're, the formula got messed up when I copied it over, because he has like his master sheet and then he copies it over and everything. So
I feel like I want to help people out like you guys input information so that can make, even though you're just like, pretty much that's all you're doing is like, okay, this and that and everything else, but you see the product of what you put out there. So it helps you become a better fantasy football player by inputting data, even though it may seem to some people like, I mean, some people do this for a living. They work for Allstate and they're like, oh, I just play number 117B. Right. I get it where that would be boring, the repetitious, but if you're constantly inputting new data for fantasy football stuff, how many receptions, how far the depth of target is, how the, all that stuff. I mean, you'll know everything. I got caught up the other day with some guy. I got razzed about just shooting from the hip. I was at work. I was listening to podcasts. I scrolled across something, and I saw somebody comparing some players, and I'm like, oh, whatever. I would have took this guy, and a couple other people agree with me, and and this guy just went off on me for like 10 minutes. You know what you're talking about? I'm like, dude, the guy had one good. I was talking about Allen Robinson. I'm like, the guy had one good season. Like he had 1,400 yards and it's like 14 touchdowns one season. He's like, you're an idiot. He had 3 top 1 seasons. He's like, what are you talking about? Do some research, use Google. I'm like, I'm walking around on my phone right now. I didn't look at every individual, stat that everybody's ever done their whole life. And Robinson was a fringe wide receiver 1 like 2 other years, But I'm like, all right, I'm in Chicago, and I realize how pissed off. I mean, I guess a lot of people, when you're kind of home, you have a home bias for the team you watch all the time. And Allen Robinson just bit the dog last year in the field. He just threw the towel in, didn't give a shit about nothing. Yeah. And I don't remember him having 2 good years in a row. I remember he had a pretty decent year 2 years ago. And I just forgot that he did so good the year before that. So I kind of shot from the hip without doing research or having all the stuff in the back of my head. and I got lambasted on the internet for it. And I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be like your team. Sometimes it could just be a specific player you really like or don't like, either way. And, sometimes you kind of have this like bias block in your head and you don't want to think about the good seasons or vice versa or whatever. And so I definitely get it. I've kind of lost my like team fandom over the years because I've gotten so into it didn't help. I'm a Bucks fan. I live in Tampa. I was a Bucks fan growing up, and I was a pretty diehard one. I had season tickets from the time I was 10 years old, and I saw what they were doing with Jameis Winston, and it just seemed like that was never going to end. And I was like, I'm out. So I became a Titans fan, and so like I still root for the Bucks. Like I'm happy if they win and so on and so forth. But I definitely don't have that like diehard mentality anymore. I don't care that much. And then of course like shortly after I do that, they bring in Tom Brady, they win the Super Bowl and all that. But I was not bandwagony. I did not jump back on. I was very clearly. I stuck to my guns, I should say.
Yeah, Craig, the internet did jump out when somebody made a mistake. He's shocked. So am I.
They tend to happen. On Twitter? Really?
What? I played a head-to-head versus Simeon Rice in high school. He was
oh, wow.
I went to Butler Rice, he went to Mount Carmel. He was a big dude back in the day. I mean,
stud, man.
Yeah, he was really good. It was really good play. I played against him and Ronaldo Wynn, who played for the Jaguars for a long time. I went against 4 guys that went to the NFL. Like I played left tackle in a Catholic school conference in Chicago. So I got to face every good right defensive end in the league that year. So it was great.
Oh yeah, I bet that was fun.
Yeah, it was. But Jameis Winston is my favorite player in the NFL. So if you ever say anything bad about him again, you're never going to be invited to the show. So.
Damn, I didn't know the rules before I was going in.
No, that's great. Well, I'm sure that everyone is kind of done guessing where these rookies are going to land and who's related to Dalvin Cook or who wants wild boar with their hands or Kenny Pickett's hand size. Drake London's not related to Drake the singer, and everyone's biggest shocker, Bruce Willis is not Malik Willis' dad. That's kind of everybody see. That's all I see on the internet now. It's all these kind of everybody's just getting sick of the speculation. So I want to take a breath of fresh air during this non-point scoring season, as Russ Fischer calls it, and talk about one of my favorite and most fun topics. That's commissioning a dynasty fantasy football league. Let's jump into some settings, preferences, and then cover a whole bunch of different ideas that people could bring up and try to help your commissioner out and spice up your league a little bit. What's your favorite? Let's talk about you a little bit first, though. But what's your favorite part of this whole fantasy football experience? Are you playing all redraft leagues, DFS stuff, basketball, dynasty leagues? I know you just said you got into Debbie, or you're a Debbie guy, self-proclaimed Debbie. Are we podcasting, writing, or something else? What keeps you in this industry? What keeps you in this site like going? Like what's your honey to your honeybee?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's in my name. I wouldn't even be on Twitter and doing podcasts and stuff if it wasn't for Dynasty. So I just, I try to help people with their teams. I try to help, that's why I created the trade calculator and the team evaluator and the model. Like I wanted to help myself first and foremost, but then I, put it out there so that other people can use the information and help their teams as well. And so like that Dynasty, but I fell in love with the game. It's as close as I'll probably ever be to being an actual GM, which is not very close, but it's getting there. And so I love the whole the whole mentality, the trading, even the lineup building, just everything about it, and in between, like buying picks, selling picks, rebuilding, contending. Like you can do so many different things all in one season, and sometimes you might not do one thing in a season. You can right. Start off rebuilding, and then all of a sudden you're contending, and then you can be like, I'm not contending enough or whatever, and you can be rebuilding again all in one season. There's no right or wrong way really either,
There's not. It's just like the problem is it all depends on when you wake up in the morning, you look at your team, you're like, man, my team's really not that bad. I can go for it. And the next day you wake up like,
what was I thinking?
This team sucks. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's kind of hard to I think Shane Hallam, whatever, those guys all kind of say like, hey, you got to stick to the plan. You got to, what is it, process over whatever he says. So I do get it, but it's so hard to stick to a plan over a 3 or 4 year period when you have these enticing trades coming your way, or you have your favorite players in fantasy football, that you want to have on your team that may not be better than so-and-so, but it's like, I'm not so much a Dolphins fan anymore, or a Bears fan, or a Broncos or a Buccaneers fan, but I do like Chris Godwin and DJ Moore are on every team that I own. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be on my team until they retire. And they may not be wide receiver ones. They have a lot of potential, but if DJ Moore never gets a quarterback and Chris Godwin has, another injury, doesn't recover as well he did, I'm going to die with those guys on my roster. It is what it is. I'm probably not going to trade them away. I as much as I don't, even though I live in Chicago, I grew up watching Dan Marino and I became a Dolphins fan because of it. So it's just something that the Dolphins are entrenched in my head, even though I'm not really happy with the organization, obviously, the last couple of years. So,
sure.
You don't feel, at least you guys won a Super Bowl recently before you became. The Titans did pretty good last year, too. So,
yeah, the Titans have been good, just not quite good enough. But yeah, honestly, I think what gets lost with a lot of people with Dynasty is it doesn't necessarily matter only what I do with my team. It matters what other people do with their teams.
Yes.
And sometimes I could be sitting there going, I'm not making a damn change to my team. I love my team. And then somebody makes a giant trade, and all of a sudden they either, they were contending and now they're rebuilding. And I'm like, well, that's one less person I have to worry about. Maybe I need to go a little more all in just to guarantee, that I get this win. Or maybe it's vice versa, and somebody makes a major trade and they just completely fleece somebody, and now it's like, well, shit, their team looks a lot better than mine. All of a sudden, maybe I'm going to go into a retooling period, and that doesn't even mean that I won't compete this year, per se, because you never know until you get 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in, exactly what's going to happen that year, especially lately with COVID and all that kind of stuff, but. I think what, people only focus on their teams, and, sometimes what other people are doing, there's 11 other managers or, whatever, how, depending on your league, and each, that are competing against you and constantly changing. The teams are constantly changing, at least if you're in a good league. And so, you're constantly looking at those other teams and saying, like, where do I compare, to them? And do I need to make any changes because they're making changes?
Right. I have that. The other thing is when things are real stagnant for a while, being the commissioner, I like to kind of make some trades every once in a while. Because when one trade happens, it gives off the pheromones to everybody else that, oh my God, somebody's doing something, and all of a sudden everybody's got to start reacting and try to be on the same page or try to make their team better or at some point in time, the first couple of years I was actually losing trades on purpose almost. Just to start some kind of hey, get the chat going, get people making fun of everybody, that kind of stuff. And it's the leagues have come a long way because of it, because of the continuity and the other things, and the messaging. Everybody has everybody's phone numbers, so things have come a long way in a couple of years. I think this is year 5 for one league I'm in. It's super active. There's 3 trades that already happened today, and I just it's without that kind of constant. Camaraderie going on. It's not as fun. So I feel like I've done a lot of damage to my team trying to make my league better. And now that the leagues are kind of established, I'm going to be able to put my my feet back in the mud and get going and start really building my teams now. So it's kind of what
commissioner sacrifice.
Yeah, it's it does kind of suck a little bit, but it is what it is. What's your favorite hobby now or before fantasy football started? What did you do before you got into fantasy football, or what do you like doing now? Some people do music or, cooking or stuff like that.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I don't have a lot of extra time. Like I said, I run my own business and I have kids and family and all that kind of stuff. I do get into kayaking and water sports like that. I used to have a wave runner, jet ski, whatever you want to call it. I always call it a wave runner, but I used to have one. Unfortunately, I don't anymore. But I used to have a lot of fun with that, and doing wakeboarding and like I said, we kind of calmed down with that part once I had kids, and so now we do the kayaking, and we'll just go out and chill on the beach. And so I live in Florida, so it's pretty easy to get to a beach and to the water. So I mean, that's probably my biggest hobby, I guess I would say. Trying to get back into fishing, but it's I just don't have as much time as I would like to have.
I wish I grew up in the city, and that's all we did was there was the lagoons all over the place. It's we never really had to. That's all you did was you fish for catfish and bluegills and stuff like that. So I never had experience of real fishing like some people did. I'm living. I mean, we live by Lake Michigan, but we never. It was kind of too far away to get to it, or you had to pay to park everywhere. So we had little places, but I went deep sea fishing in Florida one time. And I saw how awesome the experience is. I caught this humongous, 11-foot sailfish, and it was this is great. This is the way fishing's supposed to be. Not going to JJ Peppers or 7-Eleven and get a can of corn a half hour before and just putting a hook out there and catching bluegills, 100 bluegills a day. That's not what fishing really is, I'm sure. But
you can catch some legit fish in Florida for sure. And I mean, you don't even have to go way far away or anything like that. You could be right on the coast and you can catch yourself a tarpon, a giant tarpon. I mean, there's some good fishing around here.
Everyone has a favorite player they would love to have on their fantasy football teams, and everybody has a favorite player they would like to have in real life, like that they follow in real life, I guess. Who's your favorite fantasy football player, and who's your favorite player that you like to follow? Just throwing all the spreadsheet stuff aside, like someone you really root for on Sunday afternoons.
Well, my favorite player is probably Derrick Henry. I mean, I guess I haven't actually sat down and done the numbers on who's my favorite player, but I mean, as far as in Dynasty, I have the most shares of Derrick Henry and DJ Moore. Those are my two highest owned players. So those would be two of the. But I love Derrick Henry. I love everything about him. The dude's just a freak. The work ethic is unbelievable. And you could see how much it hurt him to be out last year. He came back in the playoffs, and he wasn't himself. He wasn't back 100% or anything like that. But I just love the player. Like I said, I love the work ethic with him. Somebody that I used to root for, and it was more just the comeback story, the comeback nature. I used to watch Jerick McKinnon's workout videos on Instagram and stuff like that. And I really felt like when he tore his ACL and then he had the setback, and he had basically had 2 full years off, and he was working his ass off to get back. And then look at him, he was a pretty important piece this past year in the playoffs. So that was pretty cool to see, because I watched him work his ass off for 2 straight years trying to get back onto an NFL squad and being back, being a starting running back again. And so he's definitely one that I like to follow.
That's I don't know why, but when I drafted DJ Moore, that was my guy, my go-to guy. And it's just somebody that I saw something in coming out of college and I really liked. And that's when you see somebody and he kind of hits in the NFL, this is why I'm so excited about this Campus Canton League now, because I know that I will be looking at some
You're
kid.
fall in love.
And I'm going to I drafted literally I have a 25-year-old, a 21-year-old, an 18 and a 17-year-old. And my son just played with a kid that got a full scholarship from Notre Dame and turned it down. And now he's a quarterback. And he won the Sun Times Player of the Year for football and the Sun Times Player of the Year for baseball in the state of Illinois. So he turned it down. He took the scholarship to Northwestern instead to play both sports. So I'm super excited on having him on my Campus Canton team. A couple of running backs that went to Colorado and stuff like that are just friends of my son that I get to watch on look at some games, and actually one kid transferred to USC this year. So things like that, it's fun. But if one of those kids pans out and I drafted him coming out of high school on my team, I saw him in high school, went to the college, and then makes it to the pros somehow, that will be obviously I will pay up in a rookie draft to make sure that kid's on my team.
Well, if it's C2C, you won't even have to. You'll already have them.
That's the hardest thing. Is I'm really kind of torn on how this thing's going to work out, because somebody, Christian Williams, sent me a trade offer a week after the thing was over with, and it was somebody told me that Campus Canton first round picks are absolute garbage. Everybody's already taken. There's only a handful of people left, and there's you get lucky. But if you don't have picks 101 to 104 or 101 to 105, the rest of those guys are all gone. So he offered me a first round pick and somebody for somebody else. Pretty much kind of receivers. But I didn't know at that point in time that first round picks were garbage in Campus Canton, because I didn't. So I'm this fucking dickhead. Are you kidding me? He's gonna offer me a first round pick plus so and so for this guy. I'm get out of here. Okay. So I offered him a real shitty offer back. I making fun of him, and he kind of got offended a little bit. And then I learned, it came out of ignorance on my part, sending him a shitty trade offer back. But you learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when we all played redraft, or I'm assuming most of us played redraft. and then you get into dynasty and you have no idea what you're doing in the beginning, and
Right.
team building and drafting the rookies, and unless you're watching college football every day, which I don't, I don't even have time to watch college football at all. So that's part of the reason why I started like creating the Debbie model, was because that's the only way I was going to find out for myself like how I felt about these players, and not just listening to somebody else telling me. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just going to take time. You have to get used to, like, I know for a fact that there's some first round picks in C2C this year that are kind of important, because you have guys like Quinn Ewers that people are really excited about, and then who else? But there's not that many of them. That's the thing, like you're saying. So you kind of have to. It's hit or miss. Like if it's 101 through 104, like you said, it's probably a decent pick. If it's 110 or 110, 111, like whatever, then it might not be the best pick.
This year's draft class for the rookie draft, like I loaded up on third round picks. I'm kind of excited about. The problem is, I think the Jerome Fords and the Damian Pierces and those guys are going to be gone by the time my early third round picks get there. And those are the guys I'm kind of targeting this year. A lot of people don't like them. That's who I like. And I have a feeling that those guys can get drafted a little bit higher than a lot of people think. So I might be SOL, but I load up on third round picks because of that COVID year. I feel like this is two classes kind of built into one. And there's a lot more talent in this year's rookie class. So I have, even though my roster is already full, I have a 12-team, 30-man. All my leagues are 12 teams, at least 30-man leagues. And my roster is full, and I have 7 picks to import from this draft. And it's going to be tough making a decision of guys I like versus guys who I think are going to pan out. Now, do I get rid of the Amir Smith-Rarsets, or do I get rid of like a Jerome Ford if he goes in like round 7? It's like, shit.
Right.
Those are. I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go. So it's gonna be super tough for me to make those kind of decisions in a month or so, or 3 months from now when it gets down to roster cut time. Right, I have to get down to 30 players instead of 40.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is important to have a taxi squad, though, for that reason, so you don't have to make as many decisions. Most of my leagues are now 30, and then at least a 5-man taxi squad, and that way you're just getting that extra, those extra roster spots to be able to not have to make that decision yet. And and if you have players that you think, like a Jerome Ford or whatever, like he could get on a team soon, or like he could be a thing soon, but I don't think it's going to be right away. And then you put him on the taxi squad and you go ahead and just take advantage of that. But not every league has it, and not every league even utilizes it the same way. Mine are set up to where you can have a player up to 2 years on your taxi squad. Some leagues are just 1 year, and some leagues you have to be a rookie, and so on and so forth. And it just really every league's different. You got to check your settings.
Yeah, I'm only in 2 leagues that actually approved the taxi squad when they're voted on. And we like to start at 25 players year 1, expand to 30 players year 2, and then year 3 implement a taxi squad on the teams on the leagues that did do it. There's 100 million rules for taxi squads that everybody, has the problem with that is I talked about before, where I had to make a bunch of trades and not have league stagnant. If I already have a 35-man roster with a 5-man taxi squad, some people don't like to trade. They just don't like trading. Yeah. They like to hold on to their guys. And it's not like they're not involved, but the waiver wire kind of is gone at that point in time. In a 12-team 30-man league, the waiver wire is almost non-existent to begin with. There's like 1 or 2 guys every week at the most that get picked up, And now if you're talking a 35-man league or a 30-man league with a 5-man taxi squad with 5 people or 6 players, there's no waiver wire. There's no fun in the league. It kind of keeps – at that point in time, you could send out 100 trades and it's like, nope, denied, nope, denied, nope, denied. Unless you're overwhelming somebody with and especially if people like their incoming rookies that they want to hold on to for a year or so. Like, what's going to happen with all these rookie quarterbacks that come in? Nobody's going to give up Kenny Pickett for anything more than, that they think he's worth, even though some people are like, dude, he's not – he's like the 5th-ranked quarterback in some people's rankings. What do you hold on to him for? It all depends on your your vision of where he's going to be. If he goes to Carolina, or if he sits out for a whole year and doesn't get picked to the second round of this year's NFL draft, which I think he's going to Carolina this year, but that's just me. There's too many coincidences for him, not to go to Carolina. But it's they can go. They have a lot more needs than just quarterback, so I get it.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to, with any league, regardless of the setting you're talking about or whatever, it all comes down to just, do you have good managers or not, and like you said, if you have 30 or 35 roster spots being used by each team, the waiver wire is almost non-existent. But I think that's when it becomes on you as the manager to go ahead and draft the best that you can draft. Make sure you're not missing, or to the best that you can. Make sure that you're not drafting these or draft the studs and don't and miss on the duds, and then trading, like being more active. And maybe that means that you have to lose a trade here and there or whatever, just to kind of like what you're talking about, just to kind of get the activity going. But as long as you're not like just ruining your team with it, then you can get it going, the ball rolling, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, the league's pretty active, and you've everyone's trading and everyone's having fun at that point.
Yeah, I do. I love making trades in like super flex leagues for like trading away Justin Jefferson to get Tua and Justin Fields, and it's like why didn't I just hold on to a receiver? Why didn't I just hold? After one good year, I'm like, what? He went nuts. It's not going to happen again. I got to sell him at his highest value, and then he does awesome again, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, it's so hard to like be patient for me anyway in dynasty. So in any league for that matter. But
then you turn around and you sell Justin Fields to somebody, and you get a couple pieces, and you get an extra pick, and then that pick turns into whatever great player, and all of a sudden you're happy again. So it's like, I think the problem is like you're gonna lose trades whether you do it intentionally or not. You're just going to.
I'm the king of
happens. Yeah, shit happens. Like you can make the best trade that everyone in your league goes, wow, John just completely destroyed other John, and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, somebody gets hurt, or whatever happens, he gets traded to a different team, and he has a shit QB, and so on and so forth. And next thing you know, you lost that trade, even though you did every single thing right. So, I think people freak out too much about it. Like, you're going to lose trades, but if you stop trading because you lost a trade, that's when it's going to become a problem.
Yeah.
If you continue trading, then you can win a trade at some point, and then you can actually make your team better.
Or you could just sit on Justin Jefferson and be happy to it, but I can't do that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, once again, like he could get hurt. I really hope he doesn't. I love the player,
right.
But he could get hurt, and then now you're like, well, shit, I should have traded him. I could have gotten so much value for him. So it works every way. And like I said, there's no right or wrong way, but I think one of the ways is to constantly be moving. If you're constantly moving, it's a lot harder for your league mates to catch up to you.
The thing is, like, I held on to guys for a long time before in the past. I held on to Josh Gordon's for like 6 years, and I'm like, man, where's this guy? He's coming back now. He's coming back now. He's coming back now. I don't want to trade him on the low, and I don't ever want to fall in a trap again where I'm just sitting there. Like, I see on the waiver wire guys I want, and I have no room except for maybe to cut Josh Gordon or somebody else in the bottom, but I like these guys, so I'm not going to do it. And it bit me in the ass so many times, I'm afraid to not be active anymore, I guess. That's so.
I agree.
What's your favorite host site for fantasy football? I've had the luxury of setting lineups in Sleeper. I've been in MFL, ESPN, Yahoo, Flea Flicker, CBS, and I'm moving every league to Sleeper this year. Like I'm done. Like people said they're going to leave some of the leagues that I had started if I move from MFL, and I might lose a couple leagues because of it. But I'm done setting like 19 lineups on 7 different host sites every Sunday morning and trying to like make juggle that on the apps, especially if I go to a Bears game or if I'm at something like that. It's just such a pain in the ass. Like trying to look at some of the stadiums you go to. Like I was in Cleveland a couple of years ago, and like the cell reception is terrible in there. And I like the whole second game I had, like, because of COVID, I had like 3 or 4 people not playing in a couple leagues. And I'm like, people are like, you're not starting lineups. It's a $25 fine. You lose this week because of so-and-so. I'm like, no, I couldn't get MFL to go to like the 17th page to finally make something happen. Like what's your favorite site to do fantasy football? Now, as a commissioner, I love the settings of MFL, but as a person that's a cell phone guy, because I'm in construction, I don't have a laptop or a desktop to use all the time. If I was a desktop person, MFL would be all of my leagues, but I'm not, so I have to use Sleeper. Like, what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I have a mix of both, but I run all of the leagues that I commission on Sleeper, and I've even gone to the point of, because we know, like you were saying, that MFL has better opportunities for settings and things like that. Like you can do multi-copy leagues that you can't do on Sleeper and so on and so forth. And I'm trying to make my leagues more and more crazy as I go along, because not to say I'm getting bored of the regular ones, but I'm adding more leagues, and I don't want to add the same league that I just added the previous month or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm adding different leagues and different settings and changing scoring and doing all that. And But I still love the usability of Sleeper, and so I'm doing all that on Sleeper to like the fullest extent of what I can do on Sleeper without having to switch over. So like I'm not doing the multi-copy stuff in my leagues. Yeah. But then I have leagues where, on MFL where I do it, and I'm not an MFL fan. Like I hate the way it's set up, and the fact that they just raise their rates is just mind-boggling. Yeah, they just raised their rates. It's going up like another $10 or $20 or whatever it is. And like you have a kind of like the old guard in fantasy or in dynasty, like that's what they started with was MFL. Sleeper obviously wasn't around, and that's all they know, and that's all, and they love it. Like, and and they scoff when anybody says anything about Sleeper. But I mean, they haven't made a damn update, and I don't even know how long, and they charge you for it. Like I'll pay $80 a year. Just make it so I can actually bring it up on my phone and easily do it. And I've actually, I've set up a lot of auctions on MFL. And so I have a lot of experience with it. And every single time I forget how to do something or I do something wrong because it's so damn confusing being a commissioner on MFL, unless you, like, it's almost like you have to take a class, kind of like what you're doing with the Excel spreadsheets right now, just to know what the hell to do on MFL. So, I mean, the correct answer is Sleeper, but I mean, MFL definitely has its, its purpose as well.
Yeah, with some of the questions we have later in the show, like a couple minutes, we'll go over why Sleeper's not as good as MFL, and then the other ones why Sleeper's so much better. So we'll talk about those in a minute. But
sure.
Do you like playing in a variety of leagues, or do you like all your leagues to be kind of like cookie cutter? So you don't have to worry about like, oh shit, what was it in League 17? What was the settings of this guy? Is it tight end premium here, or is it point per bonus, or is there kick return yardage in this league, or what? Do you like kind of like most of the stuff like copycat, like streamlined leagues?
No, I'm like I said, I'm basically the opposite. I want every league to be different, and I will say, like, it does get not annoying, but it does get like cumbersome sometimes where I'm like, oh crap, that like just for example, I'm in a league where QB scoring is very close to like Scott Fishbowl QB scoring, and so inaccurate quarterbacks that throw a lot of picks are not going to be good. And somebody sent me Drew Lock for like a late second, and I was like, and this was last year. Before Teddy Bridgewater had come over, so like he was considered the starter and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, late second for Drew Lock, that's not terrible, like I might consider that. And then I almost went to hit accept, and I'm like, whoa. So like, so it can bite you in the ass sometimes, but I love having the like crazy settings. I have it to where you and some of my leagues, which we'll probably talk about, but I have you start one running back, one wide receiver, one tight end, one QB, and then the rest are all flex spots, including one super flex spot. And you start 12. So I mean, you could literally start anyone, everyone, and whoever the hell you want to start. And so like there was a league that I don't think I ended up winning it, but I got like second or third place last year, and it was. I only had one running back, like one healthy running back by the end of the year. But I only had to start one healthy running back, so it didn't really freaking matter,
That's the problem. Like the regular league would force trading in that situation. Like, I feel like it's so much more of a skill to actually have to like have the super flex with two quarterbacks, three wide receivers, and tight ends. Some people play two tight ends, which I can't. I don't know. I couldn't even fathom like that. It's got to be so terrible. But
yeah, I'm in one of those as well, and I mean I agree. Like I don't want every league to be that way, but I think it's fun, and so I like mixing it up. In fact, I did two leagues just like that, and then I commissioned another league, and then I changed it back to the 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, kind of like normal settings and everything. But we kept the QB scoring and all that. So I like mixing it up, and I'm always looking for the next best thing that like I can change or play with or whatever. And that's kind of why I'm getting the C2C side now, because like at least that'll be different. I don't actually have to like change any like settings or whatever. It's just a different style league.
Yeah, that's I wish I had a little bit more variety as far as that goes, but at the same time, I'm in the fishbowl. I'm in the European fantasy football contest. I'm in like a bunch of like the Gaelic Fire, something, whatever, like. So I'm in a ton of. I was in like 10 redraft leagues last year, and then probably I was in 9 dynasty leagues, and it does. The rules are all different just because of the leagues I've joined. And some people are like, oh, I want to do what Scott Fish does, and some people are like I don't know if you know Kyle August or not, but like he hates PPR. Like he calls like the devil scoring. He wants nothing but like 6 points for a touchdown and 3 points for a field goal, and that's an awesome league. I'm like, that's fucking terrible. Like, get out of here. If it was up to me, people would get bonuses for drinking like extra sips of Gatorade on the sidelines. I'm that guy. So
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I don't think there's like a right or wrong way. It's just how you like to play, and it's all about finding the right owners and all that. And like I'm gotten to the point where if you want me to join a full PPR league, I'll join it. As long as I know the settings, I'll enjoy it and I'll be fine. If you want me to do a standard league, I'm not really about that life, but I would join and I'd play it as long as I know the rules. It doesn't really matter what the league is. I just don't want them to all be the same, basically.
Well, let's jump into some questions that all the fans and paying customers that really came here to find out about. So let's maybe both of them. I'm going to ask you a question or your opinion on some settings, and you tell me if you love it, you hate it, or whatever, you don't care. So, like I said, Kyle August standard scoring. He calls it the devil scoring. They refer to it as full PPR, half PPR. Are you a full PPR or half PPR guy?
I'm technically a tiered PPR player. That's kind of become my favorite thing. But I guess if I was to like say like between those two, it would be half PPR. I definitely like. I don't like the. I don't like when you get the full point for the catch behind the line of scrimmage and then getting tackled and so on and so forth. So like give me the half PPR. It still helps with the receiving running backs and so on and so forth, but it's not as crazy.
Tight end premium. Are you in favor of that? 0.5, 0.75. Some people have like 2.5 per catch, and then bonuses. What do you like as far as tight ends are concerned?
Yeah, I like a tight end premium. I don't go too crazy with it. I generally go about like 0.3 more than a wide receiver in my leagues. But like I said, I do the tiered PPR. So, the running backs get a certain amount, wide receivers get a certain amount, and then the tight ends. But then, I think people just I think what ends up happening with tight end premium is just people overvalue the tight ends because they're like, oh, they're getting that extra half. But when it's all said and done, you're getting like an extra 15 points a year. Like it's not really making as much of a difference as people might think, but I do enjoy it. Like I like it.
And unless you have the top 4 or 5 guys, this year probably 5 or 6 guys, it's it's all kind of irrelevant anyway. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Let's see. What about like 0.1 points per carry or some variant of points per carry, like to make the Nick Chubb guys kind of like relevant, like Derrick Henry guys relevant?
Yeah, I definitely like that. I don't want it to be crazy. I know some people literally will do 1 point per carry, not 0.1, but 1 full point per carry, and that's crazy. Like I don't need all that, but But I definitely like having something, and I have that in most of my leagues now, because there are some players that are great in the NFL that don't quite make it in fantasy because they don't catch the ball. And yet, so it doesn't feel right. Like if they're that damn good, like Nick Chubb, if he's that good in the NFL and he's a game changer in the NFL, why isn't he a game changer in fantasy? So I kind of like to, level out the playing field that way.
If you're a Derrick Henry owner and you see the stat sheet on Derrick Henry and some people just kind of see after they play fantasy, they're watching Red Zone, but literally he'll have 19 carries for like 4 yards, and then he'll have one like 86-yard touchdown run or 2 like that. It's like I don't understand like how if you had Derrick Henry, why you wouldn't want a point like at least like a 0.1 or 0.2 points per carry for a guy like Derrick Henry, because that's the workload that he has on carrying the ball between the tackles every game is it's incredible that the guy's lasted this long.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like I feel like you're rewarding that type of player because like look how bad Derrick Henry's offensive line was this past year. He was the entire team. Like Ryan Tannehill couldn't do shit. No one else could do anything, and they're just giving him the ball 40 times a game. And the defenses knew it. So, of course, he's going to get stuffed at the line of scrimmage half the time. But then he's that good that he's going to go ahead and break those long runs and do all that. But, I think you're kind of rewarding. It's not going to change your league because you give a 0.1, to Derrick Henry. Like, you're talking about a 2 or 3 point difference when it's all said and done for the game. It's not going to change your league, but it's just giving you a little extra boost to make those types of players as valuable as some of the other players.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When I'm watching Red Zone and they're like, and we'll switch to Tennessee and look at Derrick Henry, I'm like, yes, I know what's coming right now.
Oh yeah,
90-yard burn run. I'm like, yes. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily.
What about like per like 0.1 per like pass target or pass attempt or completion and stuff like that? Are you like you talked about a little bit about that before, but are you okay with those kind of things?
Yeah, so the way that I've been doing it the past like 3 leagues that I started, maybe 4, is you actually get point 0.1 per attempt, and then you get 0.9 per incompletion. So negative 0.9 per incompletion. And so, like obviously if you attempt like a pass and you have an incompletion in there, like you're going to be at negative points, but then you get bonus points for first downs and stuff like that. Like it sounds wild. It sounds crazy, and it kind of is, but when it's all said and done, it's not that different. Like the scoring ends up being not that different unless someone just had a complete blow up game. I think Lamar Jackson had 5 interceptions in a game last year at some point. I forget exactly what week it was or whatever. And, like that week he clearly had negative points because you get -4 for an interception and, and the negative points for the incompletions and that kind of thing. Now he still had his rushing and all that. It probably wasn't that insane, but I've definitely seen some like negative 13-point weeks. And so it can make a big difference like weekly, but at the end of the year, you look at it and the points aren't that different from any other league. So it's kind of more like a week to week thing. And then it makes you play matchups and stuff even more. And that's why I love it, because it's not going to kill somebody like Lamar, but you might go, oh man, that Steelers defense is pretty damn good. Maybe I'm not going to start Lamar this week and I'm going to start so-and-so instead,
Yeah, so you're looking at give me Tua and Russell Wilson as my quarterbacks for those kind of leagues, and like that's super efficient guys who don't throw too many passes. Yeah,
I thought so too until Russell Wilson broke his thumb, and then you can't then it doesn't work. So I mean, obviously injuries happen, but it's just it's so much more fun. And I will say, like, if you ever want to see grown men tilt, watch them in that type of league when their quarterback throws an interception, like, or 2 in a row or something like that. Oh my God. Like,
and the second one's a pick six for extra points off, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. People actually, a pick six is extra points off. So it's like, like you want to have some fun with your league, make those kind of changes, because all of a sudden somebody's in the group chat just flaming the other person like, I can't believe you started Patrick Mahomes today, right after he was threw a pick six, and it's like, it's so stupid because it's Patrick Mahomes, but you get to flame somebody like that.
I've seen guys flip over tables at the bar. It's absolutely awesome. I love playing home leagues just to get together and kind of have those see the reactions of this shit. It's absolutely, it is fun. It's super awesome. So speaking of that, like what should a passing touchdown be worth? And then I'm a big fan of the tier situation. Let's just say if you had 4, the second one should be worth 5, and the third one should be worth 6, and the fourth one should be worth 7, kind of thing like that. How do you feel about those kind of scoring?
I don't hate it. I've never actually done that, and I don't think it's a setting on Sleeper. But we're going to talk about in a little bit. They don't have every setting just yet. They're working on it, but
it is on MFL though.
Yeah, and MFL has its purpose. Like I said, it just I don't want to pay for it. Right. But yeah, I definitely am a bigger fan of the 6 for passing, just because I think the rushing has kind of gotten like overblown a little bit with these rushing quarterbacks. Like Sam Darnold was a thing because he had 6 rushing touchdowns at the beginning of the year, and then all of a sudden the rushing touchdowns went away, and then he was garbage. I just think it's too much. Like, they already get the rushing yardage and stuff, and so I don't want them to also get more for the rushing touchdowns. So I definitely stick with the 6 for that. But I don't really hate it the other way. I'm in a couple of leagues that have the 4 points per touchdown, and I don't really hate it. I just think you almost have to go with the rushing QB at that point, or else you're screwed.
Right. Well, I have different rushing setups for quarterbacks on my MFL leagues where they don't get as much for rushing yards as a normal running back would, or a wide receiver like a Debo got a bunch of stuff last year, but quarterbacks, like, it's not a full 0.1 for every yard. It's a 0.01 for every yard. So it takes them, it's a lot different, so you just can't take a running quarterback or 2 running quarterbacks and be like, all right, cool, here we go. It's not that easy. You have to, it makes quarterbacks a little bit more, I guess, not as important for running quarterbacks, where touchdowns worth 6 points, interceptions worth 4. So,
yep. There's no right way or wrong way or anything.
No.
It's just all, for me, like, I try to create a balance. And so the good players in the NFL are the good players in fantasy, and that doesn't always work in every league. So that's just been my goal, really.
Right. People who had like Jalen Hurts and stuff last year were like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, my quarterback got 4 points this week. I'm like, well, that's That's the settings. Like I have the same settings that you have. It's Josh Allen didn't score as much in this league as he did in that league.
Exactly.
Sacks -1 or -2, and then progressive. Like this would kill some quarterbacks, and I'm just like, this is why I like Dan Marino. In Dan Marino's 16-year career, he had 16-game season schedules, and he had 6 seasons with 10 or less sacks, like 10 or less sacks. His lowest was 6 sacks in 1988, and that was when he played all 16 games on 606 attempts, too. That wasn't like back in the day where you threw 130 times or 200 times. He threw 606 attempts and only got sacked 6 times that season. Like, that's unbelievable. And it wasn't because he had the best offensive line in the world or the best receivers. He threw the ball away when he's about to get sacked, or he didn't. He had 0 rushing. I think he had like 13 rushing yards his entire career. So it wasn't like he was like Fred Astaire in the pocket, making things happen and getting guys open, or throwing guys like as soon as guys were open on the slant routes, he'd nail them or dump offs. He was my favorite quarterback for that reason. Like, just it was unbelievable watching him. But should sacks be progressive too for like running quarterbacks who run around and get 15 sacks a game? Kind of, not 15, but like, so you get -2 for your first sack, or let's say -1 for your first sack, -2 for your second sack, -3, -4, -5, like progressive style for if you got a guy who's just getting completely killed all game long.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do it like progressive like that, but I could see once you get to another tier, like 1, 5, 10, like so on and so forth. Like if you get into those kind of extremes, then I could see, okay, we got to deduct some points at this point. And I know there's kind of the argument of sacks or QB stat and everything, but I mean, you have to, the offensive line has to be a part of it. And I mean, there's QBs that we've seen take hike the ball, and there's 4 defenders already in their face. Like you can't blame that on the QB. Like, now obviously they have to do what they have to do to try and avoid those players and all that kind of stuff. But there's some offensive lines that are just basically Swiss cheese. So I don't really like doing it progressively each individual one, but I definitely could see, like I said, once you kind of hit certain thresholds, that you would deduct some points for sure.
Okay. Bonuses, like we have a 6-point bonus for 100 yards rushing, and like a 8-point bonus or a 10-point bonus for 200 yards rushing. Same thing like with like passing yards, 300, 400, 500, 600 yard passing. So 6 points for 300 yard passing, 8 for 4, 10 for 5, 12 for 600 yards, which is going to happen. It's just inevitable. But like, do you like those kind of things?
I do. I don't go to those extremes per se, but I definitely do like giving a bonus. I think when somebody like Jamar Chase has 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns and whatever else, like, he should be rewarded for having that amazing of a game. I don't know if I'd want it to be like 8 points because you're already getting a lot of bonus points, not necessarily bonus points, but you're already getting a lot of points from the receiving, the rushing, the touchdowns, and so on and so forth. So like a 8 seems a little crazy because I mean you're basically adding on more than a touchdown at that point, to their already large total. So it kind of gets a little oppressive. But I do like giving at least a few points.
But how many 200 yard receiving games have happened this last year?
Oh, it's not very often. I'm not saying that. And I'm not even saying that, like, if you like it that way, like that's great. Like I said, I just want to know what the settings are. I'm just saying, like, to me, I try not to go too crazy with the bonuses because I was in a league, and now this was for IDP, and I'm no longer in an IDP league. It just wasn't my thing.
No
but
way.
There was a league that had bonuses like that, and it was like 10 for after a certain amount of tackles, you get 10 bonus points, and then after another certain amount of tackles, you get 20 bonus points. And so, like, if my guy had 9 tackles, I'd have 9 points from that player, assuming they didn't do anything else. But if he had 10 tackles, now he has 20 points. And then, if he had 20 tackles, now he has 50 points. And it's just like, you have guys that are getting these 20 tackle games and they have 50 points. Meanwhile, my player only had 10 less tackles and I have, 10 points or, whatever. It's like, I just don't like it that much because, I mean, those are kind of extremes. But I think if a guy has 160 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, then a guy that had 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns shouldn't outscore him by like 30 points. You know?
I like it, but too bad. I'll
never like shit on somebody for liking certain things a certain way. I just
Right.
I try to I try to level things out a little bit, I guess. No idea.
Craig says no IDP. Get out of here.
Yep.
Craig, I don't know how you guys like. I first of all, there's people in this industry who are like they write and do podcasts and do rankings for fantasy hockey, fantasy basketball, fantasy baseball, and fantasy football, and they're doing IDP and like both sides of the field for like defensive players in hockey and like the third string center in the basketball, and I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Like I don't know how. They must have a wife who makes $300,000 a year and have nothing to do with no kids and just like write all day long. Like I don't know how you'd ever do that. I have no idea.
No, I barely have time for the football, so I can't imagine.
Yeah, just the offensive side. It takes me 40 hours to make my spreadsheets every week. So,
well, we're gonna work on that. We're gonna get you down to like 4 hours a week. And
I noticed about that too is that like I went through Dave Wright one week and I went through Peter Howard for another week and I went through I forgot the other guy's name for a week, and like. I'm an electrician by trade. So if I took 10 electricians and brought them into a house and every one of them had like, said, here's an outlet there, a switch here, a light there, this thing, all 10 of those guys would have a whole different way to pipe the house and wire the house. Now, all these guys, I thought it would be like there's one special way to do spreadsheets and do that. They all have their own way of doing it. And I'm like, these I'm more confused now than when I started because I learned 5 different ways to do it. And it's like, it's nice to learn all the different ways, but it's like, shit, this works here and that works there. And this one doesn't carry over. And
I really do think that the best way to do it is to kind of just learn the basics and then start just fiddling around with it, because I think you kind of, at least for me, I figured out that you can there's almost like a formula for anything. Literally anything. The other day, I needed to. I had a list of it had the spreadsheet had a first name column and a last name column, but I needed both names combined for my formula to work. And there's a formula that I can put in, and it literally will combine the two names and then put it in there. And so like it's. And I didn't know that for a fact, but I just assumed. And so I typed it into Google, and sure enough, it popped up. It showed me exactly what the formula was. And then I put it in, and it worked. I think that's probably the best way to go about it, or at least it was for me, because I think once you figure out that you can do just about anything, then you just start playing with it,
You know what? For the last 3 or 4 years, I was doing all this, looking for players on my mouse, scrolling down, trying to look at names, And I was at a in-person draft with Evan Silva and Rob Wozniak and Kyle August and a couple other guys, and somebody showed me the function of Control F and typing somebody's name in there, and I'm like, what? Something this stupid and this easy. Yeah. It took me my eyes were watering trying to find all 350 guys' names and where to move up in the rankings, and that's all you had to do was put Control F in there and type the guy's name in. Little things like that it's
you can do. I mean, it's like essentially coding, but you're just not actually coding.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel. You can do just about anything. You just have to know the right formula to do it.
Any other settings that you really prefer?
I mean, like I said, I really like the tiered PPR. I feel like it kind of once again levels the playing field for running backs, wide receivers, so on and so forth. And so what I've been doing with my leagues is I do 0.3 per reception for running backs, 0.6 for wide receivers, and 0.9 for tight ends. And that is something you can do in Sleeper, which is nice. Yes. But then I also have a second tiered PPR, which is also the depth of the play. So if you catch a pass and you get tackled on the line of scrimmage, then you get 0 points. If you catch a pass and you go for 7 yards, then you get I believe half a point. And if you catch a pass and go for 20 yards, you get a full point. So it's kind of double tiered, however you want to put it. But Sleeper also has that function, and so I love it because it's not just your typical catch a ball, fall down, get a point, or 1.4 or whatever it is. There's definitely there's layers to it. So that's kind of become my favorite thing. But also the QB scoring that I was telling you about before, because I love the way the QB scoring works now.
I don't understand why Sleeper has. It drives me nuts because Sleeper's almost got it's a step above ESPN or CBS stuff like that, But the problem is it's got a quarter of the settings of NFL. Why did you stop? Like, why did you add like a handful of
they started working on the DFS stuff and like the betting and stuff like that. I think the dynasty, like, they don't make money off a dynasty.
No.
So they had to start focusing on what they could actually make money on, which sucks. But hopefully, I'm hoping that once they start making money on that kind of stuff, then they can kind of go back to the dynasty and be like, hey, we got to keep these people happy too.
If they said, hey, listen, guys, Sleeper's been here for a while. We made a lot of upgrades. How about this? We're just going to charge $5 a league. Like, I'd pay it in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to do whatever. That's fine. Have at it. And it's awesome. But just finish doing what you're supposed to be doing on the.
It's just like MFL. I have no problem paying for MFL if they would actually make the upgrades that they need to make. The problem is that they don't make the upgrades. They don't ever do anything. They just like, it's like other people do it for them, but yet they still charge you $80 or whatever it is. I'm just like,
if MFL had an app like Sleeper, there would be no such thing as Sleeper right now.
It would have never started. Probably
there would be zero competition for what they have. Like it would yes.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about some non-point scoring options for your league, stuff that makes the league more fun. Like P1 Dynasty asks, this is something that we brought up in one of our leagues. What about making it like an existing dynasty league, an empire league? Like after you've already started the league, like would you want to say like, hey guys, let's make it as an empire? So like I don't want to say it's going to go on forever. Some dynasty leagues don't last forever. But I mean, a lot of them, nothing lasts forever. But would you want to say like, hey, if somebody wins this league 3 years in a row, are we going to just kind of re-ante, everybody puts the extra $15 or $20 a year towards the Empire League fee, and if somebody wins 3 years in a row, we'll just shit can the whole league, start from scratch, redraft again, and if somebody wants to get out, they can get out, but if not, we'll all come back in. Like, is that something you do because you forgot to add it to the original bylaws, or is that something that's too late? You got to not have it.
I think with any major change like that, because I mean, you're talking about financial at that point, and people are going to look at anything financial as major. And I think any major change like that, you really have to do it in the future. So like you can agree to it now. You can say that the league's like, yeah, let's do it. Like let's become an Empire League. But it's not fair to Jimmy that just went full rebuild,
right.
and things like that. And so I think that you have to give people enough notice to where everyone can kind of be on the same playing field. And so like I really feel like it's like a 2-year minimum. Like, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it in 2024.
Yeah.
And then everyone agrees on it. You make the change in the bylaws. From now on, this is going to be an Empire League, but we're not starting until 2024. And it's not just changing to an Empire League. There's so many other things. There's a 1 QB league changing to Superflex and so on and so forth. It's like any major change like that, I really feel like that's how it needs to be. Unless if everyone agrees right now, 12 of 12, 14 of 14, whatever, let's do it right now. That's completely different. But
sure.
If you don't have that full, 100%, then yeah, I feel like you do have to wait.
Yeah, even if most of my leagues are like $150 and over, as far as that goes. But I mean, some people, I'm in one league it was a neighborhood league. It was $5 a team, and it was by far the biggest problematic league I've ever commissioned in my life because everything was an issue. And I'm like, guys, let's just start this. Let's do something. Everything was a problem. One guy wasn't there for the original like dice roll of like the draft pick rolling or with the draft pick, positioning. Like, no, that's it. We're not doing it until all 12 people are there. Well, your kid's got baseball practice. He's got soccer. He's refereeing games here. Like, there's never a time when everybody's going to be there together. So sometimes you can't have these things. And it's just that when it's a neighborhood league, I feel like the closer and closer people get, like literally there's people within like 7 houses of me that were complaining. I'm like, just walk down to my house and tell me. Why does it got to be a 4-hour on the site? Dude, we'll try to set something up. It takes 5 minutes to figure out draft position.
The biggest thing about fantasy, and I've been a commissioner, going back to redraft leagues for 20 plus years, and I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is that you start messing with people's money and they start freaking out, whether you're right, wrong, or whatever else.
Right.
And people freak out. I had a guy win my home redraft league, and I never saw this guy. Like I wasn't that close with him. I obviously knew him and everything. It was a home league, but I always had to track him down to get his buy-in. Every year, I would have to track him down, text, DMs, whatever, and he would finally pay me, and it took, just took half the year. And then he was always really bad, but he finally randomly won the league one year. And the day after the championship game, the next morning, he knocked on my door at 7 a.m. and I was getting my kids ready for school. And I opened up the door and I said, "Brad, get the fuck out of my face." Like, I swear to God, I'm getting my kids ready for school. I'm going, I'm like, but people freak out about money, man.
Right. I was waiting for that to unfold exactly like you said, because we all been there before. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. What do you think of McNutted from Iowa Mike from Destination Debbie, the 4D chess show? He asked a couple questions here. What do you think about Dynasty Best Ball?
I am not a best ball fan. I will say, like, obviously the dynasty part of it is completely different than just the random people drafting like 50 best ball leagues, and like you never do anything else with it again, and it's like, oh cool, I won 20 of them or whatever,
Yeah.
At least the dynasty aspect of it has like trading involved and stuff like that, so that's a little different. But I feel like, to me, part of the game, or like a very important part of the game, is setting your lineup for any fantasy football service. And so like I feel like if you're not setting your lineup, then it's just kind of diluting the game, and that's not what I want to do.
You are 100% correct. Like
Yes.
I understand it, because like Mike Tagliere used to live right down like a block away from me, and like every day he'd be drafting some kind of celebrity best ball tournament. I go to his house. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, how many leagues are you going to set lineups for? This is crazy. And he'd be like, oh, this is a best ball league. It's a best ball league. So so just like, hey, invited Mike Tagliere. So he drafts real fast and gets in the community chat, and then at the end of the league, like, he'll never see it again. They just put it on the shelf and walk away. And it's like, I get it. It's for people who are in 150 leagues, or people who have 100,000 more followers than me or you or anybody else I know. I get it. But if there's a place for it for people who do that kind of stuff, but it's definitely not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people love it, and like that's how they get their draft fix and all that kind of stuff, and that's perfectly fine. It's just, like you said, it's not for me.
The best ball aspect of it, like, you're taking shittier players that may go off like once every 3 or 4 weeks. Right. Like, it's like on purpose you're bypassing better players so you can draft the
Van Jefferson.
Yeah, or who's on the Packers that just went to the Chiefs? MVS, like a guy like that who's going to have, every 4 games going to have 5 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, maybe something like that. I don't want to look forward to drafting those guys.
Right.
What do you think about pre-NFL rookie drafts?
Oh, I love it. I don't have as many as I would like to have, but yeah, I love that shit. I really do. I'm very confident, and probably overly confident with my model and my process, my rookie process and everything. And so I feel like I can gain an advantage or gain an edge on a lot of people that aren't as like into it, or like paying as much of attention and stuff like that. I really don't have that many leagues that draft before, but I've done some startups this year, and I had rookies in the draft, and so like I've gotten a lot of Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Traylon Burks. I have no Brees, and I don't think I'm going to end up with any Brees Hall at this point, because I don't have any 101s. I don't feel like trading up. I have 102 in a league that I traded for. And I sent the guy with 101, 102, and a 23 second, and he shot it down. And I'm like, I'm not paying more than that, man. Yeah. I'm just not doing it. So at this point, I've just, I've come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to have any Brees Hall until like he gets some kind of value decrease, which I'm definitely not banking on that either.
I've trended every rookie coming in since before the Super Bowl every month. Like, I've seen guys, how much they've moved. I listen to about 50 podcasts every week, and I've listened to the Destination Debbie, and I listen to, every podcast out there talking about rookies. And I walk around, like I said, I don't have a laptop, but I do have my phone. I have my Google Sheets, and every time I hear something, I'll press pause on my podcast, rewind, and I'll take notes on the players. And I have notes and notes and notes and notes about who had concussions and who, because they left, and who has small hands and who has and I wish that we could all have all my drafts right now before the actual NFL draft, just because of the fact that by the time everybody else wants to draft, and the guys who don't do any offseason work at all, July, all that, those lists are already streamlined for these people. They did no work but show up with a piece of paper and go to the draft, and that's it, And I put so much work in. How many people,
even the analysts, how many people have said in the past week, if this player gets first round draft capital, if
Yes.
this player gets second round draft capital, so on and so forth. I feel like we need to start getting beyond that, and
Yeah.
like, especially for the analysts, we need to get beyond that and be like, this player's good. I don't care what round he gets picked in. He's a good player. Draft him.
Yeah. There's a lot of players that like Christian Williams this year, like or Christian Watson this year. Like I don't like him at all, and people are like, he's moving up the board so much. He's moving up the board so much. Like this competition, the he played against, the drops he had, like he's being such a big dude. Yeah, he's fast, he's athletic, but like he cannot win versus one-on-one versus like way smaller cornerbacks and stuff like that. Like there's so much things I hate about him. People are like, I hope he goes to the Bears. I'm like, I hope he doesn't, because the Bears have no receivers right now, and they're going to get a shitty receiver if they draft Christian Watson. Like, this just things like that. That I guess that's my take anyway. Not saying that's 100% the take or that it should be or the Bible, but people are going to not know this kind of shit that I know, and he's going to be, because of his draft capital, I guess, but people are going to be like drooling over him in July when it comes to draft time because of where he's at or who he got drafted by, if he goes to the Chiefs or if he goes to the Packers, and it's like, man, he's going to be just a normal guy, I think, in the NFL. But
yeah, you don't have to tell me. I did an entire pod just on why Christian Watson's going to bust. So you don't have to tell me. Although I do think he'll be good in best ball. So
there you go, the best ball guys. What do you think about always having 1 year advance in league dues for a dynasty league draft, for a dynasty league? Now, here's the caveat here. All of my leagues are home leagues, so I see everybody every year. I don't need to collect money from everybody all the time. They're all I can literally walk to most people's houses, or I see them every year at a. We do our draft lottery, and here's a good thing is I always have a financial secretary in every one of my leagues. I don't collect the money, which is huge. Sure. So the financial secretary collects all the money, and you can't draft unless you have your money turned in for the rookie draft. So, what do you think about those kind of things for like dynasty leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it all depends on how well you know people and all that. But I will say it wasn't a dynasty league, so obviously it didn't have the taking money for a future year or anything like that aspect to it. But in a redraft home league with all of my neighbors and close friends and all that kind of stuff, we had somebody make a trade with collusion, and I figured it out pretty easily, and it was actual collusion, not this like bullshit like, oh, I didn't like the trade or whatever. Like there was actual collusion there, and I didn't take money away. I didn't do anything to the people. I just said, look, I'm reversing the trade. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they hated it, and half of the league ended up going with my neighbor, and they quit and they started their own league. And so these were all very close people that I hung out with on a daily basis and so on and so forth. So even if you feel like you know somebody, like I said, you start messing with people's money and all that kind of stuff, people can do some really dumb things. So I do think, especially if you don't know the people, but even if you do know the people, I do think it's important to take the money a year ahead, because people can just ruin their teams, especially in dynasty, and then just be like, I can't deal with this shit anymore. Or sometimes it doesn't, not even that. Like maybe they don't have the best team, and they're just like, guys, I'm just too busy now, and they leave. And then all of a sudden you have this shit team with no picks, and you're like, well, oh, on top of that, whoever's taking over the orphan, you have to pay $100 to buy this team. If you have that next year covered already, it's so much easier to just be like, hey guys, I know the team's not good. I know it doesn't have any picks, but this year's covered. You can make some moves. You can do whatever. It's just so much easier to do that. So I do think it's important. But once again, if you have guys that you've known for 30 years, maybe it's a little different.
They're just more pains in the ass. That's all it really is. So.
True.
So we already, if an orphan is needed, the first year should be paid for free for them. That's kind of like, that goes one-on-one with the having to pay 2 years in a row. So can all picks be traded? Like some leagues have 4 or 5, I think NFL has like 4 years. Sleeper has 2 years. It's this year and 2 more years. Can you trade every pick that is, we just started doing this, one of the 6 or 5-year dynasty league that we have. Like now any pick that's on the slate, you can trade away. Some people don't like to have, they like to have just this year's or 1 year in advance or 2 years in advance. What do you think about like trading future picks?
I think, as long as you follow the rule that any future first that's traded, you have to pay that year's dues, then like I really have no issues with it. Personally speaking, I don't like to do that, but that's just the way I play with my teams. I don't want to trade first, like my 24 first right now, when we haven't even taken my 21st or 22 first picks, yet. Just because I feel like at that point I could be mortgaging my future. I have no idea how I'm going to feel about my team in 2 years and so on and so forth. So I try my best not to even use my future first, like my next year's first, if I can help it. Because I try not, like I always look at it like a credit card almost, like I'm borrowing from the future, to help my team now. And so I try my best not to do that. And I'm even trying harder to be better about it now that I'm getting even better with the rookies and so on and so forth. But I think, at the same time, if you're doing next year, I'm perfectly fine with it. You start getting 2-3 years out. Like I've seen, 25 first being traded and like on Twitter and stuff. And I'm just like, that's kind of dumb. But like I said, if as long as you collected the dues from that person. And I have a league where we do trades like 3 years in the future, but we only have one guy that really does it on like a normal basis. And he always, the second he sends his first, and he does it very quickly, and then he'll send me the money immediately. So I'm like, fine by me.
Yeah. Someone just traded Javonte Williams away to get a 22, a 23, and a 24 first round pick. Like, so it's like, okay, I mean, you're not going to see that, and first of all, I trade away picks like anything. I don't really care. First round picks hit at like a 40% rate anyway. Second round picks are lucky. Third round picks are pretty much a dart throw, a blindfolded dart throw. So I don't really care about picks. First round picks are the only thing that really matters to me. But if I'm in win now, I'm going to do whatever it takes. If I win 4 years worth of money because I won this year, I don't care about my pick for 2022 or 2023 because my team is going to be stacked, and there's a time and I'll be able to recoup that pick somewhere. If my team wins, I can say, you know what, everybody's getting a little bit old. I'm going to sell Dalvin Cook for a first and a second and a third next year, and I can do that in a heartbeat if I wanted to. And that's even an underpaid for stuff I'm getting back. I can recoup that kind of stuff very easily as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's all about what type of league you're in. If you know that you can make trades easily and all that kind of stuff, then I think it makes it a lot easier. In fact, like I'm not saying I don't do it. I literally just made a trade like 2 days ago, and I have a team that's very good, but it's also getting older. And I didn't have any 22 first because I traded traded that first for Austin Eckler at some point in the season. And I'm just sitting there looking at the team, and I'm like, I really like my team. I've scored the most points. I've won the most games, in the past 2 years. But it's getting older. I need to make some picks. So I went ahead and sold my 23 first, and I had 207. And I traded both of those picks for 111 and 202. And so now I got a little earlier with the second pick, or a lot earlier really. And then, I got into the first round this year, and I don't love trading away that 23 first because I know how expensive those are going to get once people really start looking at the class and everything. But at the same time, I just really wanted to I really like the back end of this, this year, like the 110 to 202 range, or even a little bit beyond that. I really like that in this draft class, even though people seem to hate it. But there's quarterbacks, there's some really good wide receivers, and then even once you get a little bit beyond the 202 range, there's Trey McBride, like a stud tight end. So I really like being in that range, and so to get 2 picks there, I was perfectly fine selling that 23 first because, like you said, I'll probably end up selling something to get a 23 first back at some point.
Yeah. You're 100% right. What about deep roster draft orders done by draft points? I mean, max points. It prevents outright tanking. So, our league, draft lottery is something we do in all of my home leagues, and I have an actual bingo ball machine with 96 balls. It's 34 balls for the least amount of max points for, and then this is for the shit bowl. So you're 101 to 106. The points for 20, the second 15, 12, 10, and 5. So we have a lottery system, so nobody can really tank. But if you win the shit bowl, you get pick 112 or 113 also. So there's a big prize for actually winning the shit bowl. So nobody really wants to tank per se. But to be in a lottery, is it more important to have pick 113, or is it more important to get have more chances to get 101. It's a decision people have to make, So
Yeah.
what do you think about those kind of max points for or max points? Because the rest of my league, 107 to 512 are all by max points, not max points for, but 101 to 106 are max points for the lottery.
Yeah, I don't really get into the max points too much, and that's more. I don't commission any leagues on MFL. I only on Sleeper. So as far as the ones I commission, and they don't really have that option on.
My stuff's all home drafts. We do it in person. That's why I do that.
Okay.
I actually have an actual bingo machine.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm just, as far as the max points go, I don't really get into that, but I do, like on Sleeper, I do the league median. So, if a good team just happens to be losing each week, but you have that league median on, they're going to end up winning against the league median more often than not, and it's going to kind of fix any of those problems. But also, like I always say, it boils down to like having good owners in your team or in your league. Like if you have good owners, you don't have to worry about collusion. You don't have to worry about people tanking and so on and so forth. And if you have someone that you're just that worried about, it might be time to replace them. More than changing the settings in your league. And that sucks with home leagues. Like you don't want to kick anyone out or whatever. But sometimes it's important. And I've actually had to do it in a couple of my home leagues. And I'll tell you what, like, half the time the guys aren't that into it and they don't care. They're just like, yeah, I'll leave. Like, replace me with someone else, because they weren't that into it to begin with, which is why they're tanking and doing all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I do think it is important to have some kind of incentive. Like you guys have the 113. A lot of the leagues that I do has like a $50, $100 payout to the person that wins the toilet bowl. And then we also, in some of the leagues, I've started doing themed leagues recently, where like I have a Harry Potter league, and so there's a bunch of Harry Potter themes that go along with it. And then now we have 2 Lord of the Rings leagues, and we're probably gonna do like we get pretty nerdy, but like one of the things we did for the last place team was you have to dress up. Like we do a virtual happy hour every Friday. We all get together, drink, talk, bullshit, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we've made a big thing of it. We've been doing it for 2 years straight, like every single Friday. But when the person that gets last place has to dress up like Hagrid on the Zoom call and talk in a fake British accent the entire time, and like all that. So like it's nothing crazy, but just stupid shit like that. So you're giving a punishment, you're giving a reward, but I think that kind of, as long as you have good owners, then you don't have to worry about this guy's going to tank or whatever.
That's I've never been into the Harry Potters or the other stuff like that, but I know Russ Fischer. Like I hear him talk about all the time. Oh, he's in these leagues, these I guess themed leagues with that Harry Potter and the other league you talked about. I just can't. I've never been in those kind of things. I've never been in that kind of stuff, but I see the shenanigans that people pull, and it's absolutely awesome. So that is
fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like if you're into those movies, like those types of movies, then we all make jokes using the references from the movies and stuff. And like I said, we get pretty nerdy, so it's fun. It's a lot.
I was about to ask how entertaining is that message board for those kind of leagues?
So like I mean, I know you said you're not big into Harry Potter, but if you know who Professor Snape is, but his name Snape. So we would, instead of saying we were sniped in the draft, we would say we were snaped. And so like every time somebody, like, because it was an auction, it's a 24-hour auction. And every time somebody would take over the auction from somebody else, we'd be like, "Oh no, I was snaped!" And it's just like, it's so stupid. But in the moment with 12 guys, you're all having fun.
Absolutely.
It's fun,
That's super fun. I love to hear that kind of shit, man. It's super awesome.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to try and do this like you just mentioned. I'm going to try and do like a 3-minute video every week, just kind of rip on everybody in my league, that lost, or like let's talk about standings, playoffs, outcomes. Like I already have a handful of things to make my league, a little bit more unique than other people. But the 3-minute video is something that a couple of managers do, that you guys do all together every Friday night. But I'm going to try and do something just to kind of add a little spice to the league this year. What is something else that you guys are thinking about or talked about or consider doing that maybe add a little spice to your life in the future for your home leagues or your leagues?
Well, one thing that I've done more recently with the switch to 17 weeks instead of 16 in the NFL is I changed the way my leagues are set up. Like the schedule of my leagues are completely set up, and now I have it, and it wouldn't have worked before, and that's why I wasn't able to do it before. But now I have it to where you play in a 12-team league, you play every manager once, and then you kind of start the like playoff process after that. And so what happens is then we have 2 4-man tournaments that start, and you have like the top tier guys go into the top one, and then the middle guys go into the middle one, and then you have the 4 teams that don't make anything, and so they're out already. Like you're out, but you're still playing for the reward at the end or the punishment at the end. So like you're still trying if you're out. But you have those 2 tournaments, and then there's different bonuses and stuff because, like I said, they're themed leagues, so like there's different things that go into it. I'm not going to get into it. That would take another hour, but then like you play each other 3 times in those tournaments, so you play each person once, and then whoever ends up winning the tournament. Or the top tier tournament gets the bye in the playoffs.
Nice.
And then in the other league, the bottom player that lost the most gets kicked out of the playoffs. And so now 7 teams make the playoffs. The one top player has a bye. Then everyone ends up playing each other, and the playoffs play out and all that kind of stuff. So I love the way it's set up. I know not everyone loves 7 teams going to the playoffs because then there's that chance that 7th ranked guy could win the whole thing, and everyone's gonna be pissed or whatever. But I just love the way it's set up. The way I love that you play everyone once, so it kind of takes some of the luck out of it. Because sometimes you end up in the old way of doing it, you end up playing the worst team twice, and someone else plays the best team twice.
Yes.
And that and so I love the fact that you play everyone once. Now obviously there's bye weeks and injuries involved, so there's still luck involved. But you can say, I only played this team once. No one got an unfair advantage or anything like that. And then you get into like the tournaments and stuff. So that's kind of like my new thing. I really love the way that's working out.
We kind of did the same. We implemented the 17-week schedule because some people hate divisions. They go all by points, stuff like that. I love divisions, because especially in a home league when it means something. Because we have a division lottery we have a division draw every year where all 4 division winners. All 4 division winners actually get the worst division winner gets to pick his opponent first. So he picks obviously the worst team, and then it kind of goes in a snake draft as far as that goes. But also, our divisions, we have a Division 1 play-all. So you play the other 2 division teams, and it's a win, loss, or tie depending on how many points you scored. So now you play all division players 3 times, and you'll have either 2 wins and a tie, or 3 wins, or 2 and a loss. But so it's just one more thing. There's a million ways to manipulate the system as far as that goes. But with divisions, that's what I found the most interesting way to make that work. So,
that's how I used to do it with the divisions. I felt like it always made sense that you play everyone else and then you play your division again. And I felt like that made it, because then now I'm winning the division because I was the best in the division, and so on and so forth. But then once we got that extra game, I loved the way that I don't even have to worry about that crap. I'm not playing anyone twice unless it's in the playoffs, like that kind of thing. So
I hand make the schedules from week 2 to week 16 now. So, or I'm sorry, week 14 now. So I play a sort of division. People play against each other weeks 2, 3, and 4, and then 12, 13, and 14 also. So
yeah, I like that.
So if you play your division guy, sometimes you look at these schedules that are auto-generated for your league, and some people, if you had divisions, you play your division opponent week 2 and then week 5, and it's like, shit, one guy didn't have whoever. I don't want to say Javonte Williams gets hurt this season, and somebody had him. Now you're playing against this guy in your division who didn't have Javonte Williams for the first 5 weeks of the season. That's bullshit. Why should your 2 division wins come against that? So I like to separate divisions, people against each other.
No, I definitely like that as well. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think if it's fun, but doing the extra tournaments, I will say, was a lot of fun because my team in that Harry Potter league was dominant, just absolutely dominant. And I went in thinking that I was going to be, the leader. And then the last week, week 11, somebody in my division ended up beating me by like 1 point. And so he ended up getting that going into the top tier tournament because of it. So I went into the bottom tier tournament. Now I ended up winning that tournament, but the highest I could go was fifth place. And so I ended up playing against the the fourth place guy, and so on and so forth. But it was funny. It was like a little 1 point difference, but it made so much of a difference. But it had the chat going crazy. People were losing their minds because I'd been talking so much shit, and all of a sudden I wasn't the top guy anymore, and so the chat's losing their minds, and it makes it so much more like
Absolutely.
involved and fun.
That's what it's all about, man. That's what we play for.
So,
last question, as long as we're talking about like league continuity and fun and all this stuff, I need some ideas for torture for the worst team in the league. I see people standing on the side of the expressway with a sign that says "I suck at fantasy football," or having to show up the draft in a dress, or buy the beer for the whole league. Our leagues have whoever won the shit bowl gets to pick the location for the draft lottery, system, and whoever won the actual league gets to pick the location for the rookie draft, favorite bar, your backyard, whatever it is. But you get to pick those locations. What is some perks, and what punishments do you think are awesome, or that you want to do, or like that people? I know that you see the one guy's got to talk in English, or have an English accent for the talk.
Yeah, you got to dress up like Hagrid. I like to do more fun stuff like that. Like I don't want to hurt somebody, and I don't want somebody to be in danger or anything like that. Like I know one of my friends, his league does like you have to eat the spiciest wings at this restaurant, like the hot wings, like with the ghost pepper sauce and stuff like that. And they videoed it, and the guy was just dying. And I'm like, man, I don't want to wish that upon somebody. So like I don't like getting in all that. I'm not saying you can't do it. I mean, it's funny, but I don't ever want to have to do it in case I would ever be last. So I don't want to wish that upon anyone else either. So I like doing the fun stuff. You have to dress up like Hagrid, make a fool of yourself. In the Lord of the Rings leagues, another thing that we're doing is, and once again, if you don't know Lord of the Rings, then it probably won't make a lot of sense. But there's like a bad character, whatever you want to call him, named Gollum. And so we made it so if you lose the league this year, if you're in last place, then you automatically become Gollum next year. And if you're Gollum, you can't win the progressive pot. So like you cannot win the extra money that goes along with because it is an Empire League. So like if for whatever reason you were to hit all of those milestones, you still wouldn't be able to win that extra money. And so
That's
like
awesome.
You can kind of have. You can have it be like a true punishment, or you can have it be something like that where it's something kind of written into the bylaws. Like, okay, well, yeah, now you could still win the league next year, but you're not going to win nearly as much money as somebody else that wins the league next year.
Those are awesome. That's great. Stuff like that is why I'm, talking to. Every week I learn something new, or something new from somebody, or somebody comes up with a suggestion, or your leagues. I mean, I'm not a Harry Potter guy, but like but just hearing the things you guys are talking about doing, it sounds absolutely awesome. That's great that you guys are on the same page and had those kind of punishments and stuff, because I think just showing up for a regular neighborhood draft and not having anything like this, it's a lot of. I mean, I'm a pretty busy commissioner, and I have a lot of active owners, but I'm kind of jealous for the continuity you guys have and the fun you guys.
Well, I will say it's a lot of work as a commissioner, because, like I said, there's random bonuses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I have. You want to talk about learning how to do spreadsheets? I have full-on spreadsheets with the different, like in the Harry Potter one, you have a wand bonus and a stone bonus and a cloak bonus, and I have to keep track of all that crap. And yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not for the faint of heart as a commissioner, because I mean, I have people messaging me, "Did I use my wand bonus?" And so I have to bring up the sheet, and like if I'm not on top of that shit, like that's right. Going to be my fault. Like, so I mean, I put it upon myself. I started the league. I said I would be commissioner and all that, but I don't know how many of those leagues I can do, because I don't have that much extra time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
but you were talking about like how you do the lottery and everything to pick your division and or whatever else. We're actually doing in the second Lord of the Rings league. We haven't picked our what we call the faction mates. There's like 6 good and 6 bad. And so we have an NFL draft contest where we're all picking where we think people will go in the NFL draft in the first round, and whoever ends up being closest to worst it is going to be how it's going to be ordered for who gets to, like you were talking about, where we'll have the top 4 will get to pick the rest of their division mates. But because it's a Lord of the Rings themed league, there's going to be like different bonuses that go with each different faction. So literally you could go from if you win, you could be in the best faction and be able to win the most money, to like the worst faction have no bonuses and so on and so forth, or it could be completely random. So it's pretty important, but just doing extra stuff like that is a lot of fun too. Yeah,
it's awesome, man. Good for you. There's nothing better than a good commissioner. Like people don't appreciate how much stuff you go into it, how much you put into it. But I love putting my time, putting my effort into this because I play in a league too. I'm a member of the league. Yeah, I want it to be as fun as possible, and I want to. I don't join these leagues just to be like, hey, look, I'm in fantasy football. I joined them because I have a great time. I played football as a kid. I watched football since before I started playing in fourth grade. I've had kids. I've coached my kids in football. I've watched them play. We've watched football together. Like this is my favorite hobby by far. It's my life. It's what I love to do, and there's nothing better than sitting around with a bunch of my neighbors or friends or kids or watching Red Zone on Sunday afternoon. It's phenomenal, and this is what we play this game for. So you might as well make it a good time. And thanks for being an awesome commissioner, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. No, I 100% agree. I love the game, and that's why I'm doing it. But the funny thing is, like, I keep bringing the same people because we all love doing these leagues. So the same people keep joining, and then I'm like, I got to create a league with different people because when you're in 5 leagues with the same people, you all trade for the same players and so on and so forth. So like, I've gotten to the point where now I'm trying to mix in a couple, not randoms, but like a couple like newer people that aren't in the other leagues in each one. And then I actually created another one that had Devi in it that doesn't really have a theme or anything, but it was completely randos from Twitter because I was like, I just want to have a different league.
I'm in 3 leagues with the 2 of the same people, and they know every move I'm going to make. Every time I make a trade, yeah. Like they'll trade for the guy I just traded for this league just to piss me off, kind of shit, and then they'll ask for the world from and it's like It's super fun to have guys who you can kind of say the rules to when they know the rules or they know from that league or this league. But at the same time, there's nothing that gets under your skin more than having the same guy in a couple leagues and learning you on shit or learning your trends or being able to.
But sometimes it kind of works out too because like one of the guys in one of the leagues I'm in multiple leagues with. He traded for Derrick Henry, and we already talked about how he's my favorite player. I have him in the majority of my leagues and all that kind of stuff. So he traded for Derrick Henry from another guy, and it just happened to be one of the leagues that I didn't have him in, which is not very many. And so immediately everyone's in the chat going, "Well, when's John gonna make this trade?" Because the other guy just wouldn't trade with me for whatever reason. And so like they're like, when is John gonna go get his boy? And I held off, but like it was kind of like known at some point I was going to get him. Yeah. And so a couple months went by and I didn't get him. And then finally one day he sent me an offer and I liked it. And I'm like, there we go. So I got my boy. It's just like, so sometimes it kind of works out when they know you that well because it's like, we're going to make this happen at some point. We just have to make it work for everyone,
Yeah. Got him on a good day where he felt good about sending you a nice trade.
Exactly.
A decent trade. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks for your time. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. And like I always tell people, like, hey, this show could be 35 minutes or it could be. I was on the show for 4 hours with Peter Howard one time, and I'm like, dude, wow. I feel like the biggest jerk off in the world, like having you sit on my show for 4 hours. But he liked it. He kept talking at a good time. I had a great time talking to everybody, meeting people like yourself. So thank you so much for being on the show today. And it's hopefully I get to do this again or come up in the future, be on one of your shows. But awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I love, obviously, I would have talked another 2 hours too. It just so happened I got off early enough today to do this, in the middle of the afternoon. That's not normal, but I love talking football. I especially love talking about being a commissioner because I think that is like an underrated aspect of the game. Is not only either being a good commissioner or having a good commissioner. And then, even if you feel like you do have one, like knowing the type of settings or scoring or whatever that you can implement in the league to make it even more fun,
Yeah, I learned a lot from you today, and like Nick's going to find out this year that I'm going to make little 3-minute videos, like like things like that. Scott, who was supposed to be on an earlier show, that he's going to find out the same thing when I make these little videos all season long, making fun of everybody. And of course, I'm not going to rip on myself, but it's I'll do the best I can to make sure everybody else gets a little taste of sarcasm every week. So. But thanks, man. Thank you so much for being on, and look forward to all the stuff in the future we get to spend together.
Absolutely.
So have a good one, and thanks for Nick Script for letting me use his YouTube channel here, and he's got an awesome show coming up on Thursday, the first round rookie stuff with the Fantasy Points Media Group. I'm looking forward to him. He's a bright star, but he's a rocket ship to the future. All the stuff he puts in his YouTube videos, his everything, his TikTok videos, his everything. I mean, everything he does, the guy's he's special, man. So I just think that he lets me be part of his channel, and thanks a lot, man. We'll see you later for commission evaluation for Dynasty Coach A. For all the rest of us here to listen today, thanks a lot. Have a good day, and adios.
See you guys.